I'm here in Shag Harbour, Nova Scotia. This is the home of the October 4th, 1967 government-documented UFO crash in southern Nova Scotia with the big speaker alongside Don Ledger, Mr. Stanton T. Friedman. Stan, nice to talk to you again. You were on the show last season. It's been a while, and you just got back from Irvine, California. How are you?
Well, I'm tired. It's been a long year. I can't believe how busy I am. I'm not supposed to be that busy. I'm an old guy, you know. But the demand is there, so we go where the demand is.
Yeah, and it's beautiful weather here in Nova Scotia, so it's really nice.
Delighted, indeed. It's nicer right here today than it was in Irvine, California when I left.
So how was it in Irvine, California? I had been reading into it for a long time.
It was the MUFON Symposium, and I've spoken at more of these. This was number 42. I haven't spoken at all 42, but I've spoken at dozens of them. And it was particularly highlighted by the presence of Story Musgrave, who has 6 degrees, is an astronaut who's been in space 6 times, has 20 honorary PhDs as well. He repaired the Hubble telescope. And it was very interesting. I met him briefly. He was at the press conference part of the time. Then he gave a long presentation, a lot of incredible pictures from outer space.
Yeah.
The guy is...
Didn't he almost single-handedly build that thing himself?
Well... yeah, kind of. He's got a very interesting background. By the age of 3, grew up on a farm. He was in the woods on his own. By 10, he was driving tractors, and by 12, he was repairing them. And he didn't even finish high school. He went into the Marine Corps as a pilot, I guess, and eventually went back to school and got a bunch of degrees. He's a surgeon and a whole bunch of other things. But it was interesting. I've seen this before. The kids who grow up on a farm and are able to do almost anything. They're very sharp. Certainly he was. And I was particularly impressed by the fact that he stressed that while he hadn't seen any flying saucers, and he has no personal evidence that they are real, he is convinced the universe is loaded with advanced technological people all over the place, and that it's very old, and there are people traipsing between star systems and so forth. So none of that bothers him. He was disappointed in NASA. I mean, he's in his 70s now, but that they really blew an opportunity. They didn't provide any leadership. I mean, I know how he feels. When I was working in the space program in the 60s, everybody expected by the end of the last century we'd have a base on the moon. We'd have gone to Mars, And I say that what NASA needed was an Admiral Rickover, and they didn't get one. He was the guy who pushed nuclear propulsion system for the Navy, despite lots of opposition. And some people hated his guts because he was a tough taskmaster. This is where we're going, and you don't want to go there, you get off the train. I mean, that was kind of his attitude. And if you had to buy 2 of everything, 2 parts, copies of every part, you do it because we want to get the job done.
Right.
And I worked on at least 4 programs which needed a Rickover desperately. And NASA hasn't had leadership. I mean, Kennedy set a goal, get a man to the moon and back by the end of the decade. Long enough ahead so you could accomplish all kinds of subsidiary goals, but close enough so everybody expected to be alive. I mean, it wasn't the distant future, in other words. And NASA hasn't had a goal since. I mean, look how, here we are, and there's no American way for a guy to get to the space station.
Right.
Does that make any sense? I mean, it doesn't. So he expressed his concern about that. There were some good papers. There were some that weren't so good. Big crowd.
What was your particular topic at the MUFON Congress?
Are we ready for contact?
Right.
That was the theme of the symposium, and mine was, are we ready for disclosure, basically? And my answer was no, that we're not. Because I think people are dreaming when I think, well, everybody's going to turn over everything they've got. If you show me yours, I'll show you mine, kind of thing.
Right.
Well, look at the situation the world is in. We will spend $1 trillion this year on things military. Every day, 25,000 kids die needlessly of preventable disease or starvation, but we're going to spend that $1 trillion. we must look like a very primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare from out there.
Of course.
But since when have we been willing to share advanced technology with our enemies, potential enemies? I don't see people getting together. Oh, look what we figured out last month. What are you guys doing? I mean, the planet doesn't seem to work that way. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So, also, we need to take the next step. Flying saucers finished the job that Copernicus started of taking man out of the center of the universe. You remember old Nick in 1543 published a book in which he had the gall to suggest, it's hard to imagine, that the Earth isn't the center of the universe. Well, he died that year, so Giordano Bruno got burned at the stake for agreeing with that viewpoint. In other words, and that was just moving the center over one little step from the Earth to the Sun.
Right.
Sun's the middle of the universe. Okay, now we have come around to recognize, most of us, the Sun isn't the middle of the universe either. We're not the most advanced civilization. And the kicker is just what Story said. We've been around a long time. It's an old, old place. We didn't even discover the neutron, the existence of the neutron, until 1931. We figured out how the stars work in 1938.
Right.
Others have known that for billions of years. And so to think that we should be treated as equals, so to speak, I don't see it. Our track record, in other words, I don't think we qualify for admission to the Galactic Federation. The UN doesn't allow cities to join. Got to have a country. The Galactic Federation, whatever it's called, you got to have a planet represented. And how many countries? I don't know how many countries we have on the planet, 180, or it depends on who you talk to. But there is nobody who speaks for planet Earth. And all this idiocy about why don't they land on a White House lawn? I'm a dual citizen of Canada and the United States. And I think it's utterly crazy to think that the President of the United States speaks for 7 billion Earthlings. He doesn't speak for 310 million Americans much of the time.
Right.
And that they're going to come down and say, hey, let's go out for a beer. I don't talk to the squirrels in my backyard, for example. So why would they come here if they don't think we're worth much? Well, very simple. This doesn't need to be sophisticated. Every society of which we have much knowledge is concerned about its own survival and security. That means you got to keep tabs on the primitives in the neighborhood. Close tabs on those primitives will show signs of being able to bother you. Right. At the end of World War II, there were 3 signs that these idiot Earthlings, who had just killed 50 million of their own people, I think that's a sign of idiocy. I mean, my prejudice. 3 signs that soon, within 100 years, which is nothing on a cosmic timescale, that we're going to be able to go out to other star systems. The 3 signs are nuclear weapons, it's at the end of the war, V2 rockets, powerful rockets, and radar in the sense symbolizing the development of advanced electronic technology. There was no radar for practical purposes before the Second World War. Isn't it amazing? The only place on the whole planet where you could study all 3 of those technologies in July 1947 was southeastern New Mexico.
Right.
Trinity Site, first atomic bomb on the grounds of the White Sands Missile Range. That's where we were testing the captured German V2s. That's where we had our best radar to track the rockets, which sometimes went that way instead of that way. A little embarrassing. And that's where Roswell is, southeastern New Mexico.
Exactly.
So what I'm saying is, you've got to be guaranteed that all the other nations, other planets, other civilizations in the local neighborhood would be concerned with idiots like us with our track record.
Right.
We're not nice guys bringing peace and joy and for everybody. Not at all. We're warlike. We have beat the hell out of our planet. And we don't have a vision that would allow us not to be at the top of the heap, and yet when you look around you say, you guys aren't kidding yourself if you think you're at the top of the heap, Yeah. So I don't expect disclosure soon. I was well received out in California. I think because I said some things people knew but hadn't heard before. They were aware of it but hadn't really had somebody else put it into words. So it was a good meeting. Next year in Where are we going to be? Cincinnati.
Great.
Yeah, I've been asked to be there, so
Excellent.
each year from time to time a different MUFON group sponsors the program. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But and incidentally, MUFON last month got over 500 UFO sighting reports.
Wow.
In 1 month.
Jeez.
Mostly from North America, obviously.